Good afternoon and welcome to the third edition of the Michelle Nastasis LGBT Awareness Show. And what we're going to do is something a little different today. The first two segments of our show are based primarily on fair housing and the law. And with me today, I have two very, very special guests, MJ Borelli and Diane Edwards, to give you an idea of what the Fair Housing Council of Central California is all about. They are a professional, nonprofit, civil rights organization dedicated to the elimination of discrimination in housing and the expansion of housing opportunities for all people. The center accomplishes its goal through advocacy and equal rights in housing opportunities, assisting victims of housing discrimination and enforcing compliance with housing laws. It also provides a multifaceted program of private enforcement, education, and outreach, which is part and parcel of why I have them here today, and to also further their goal of equal housing opportunity in the Valley. Welcome to my show.
Thank you. Thank you.
This is kind of a payback for y'all inviting me to your show on KFCF. Your show is called
Fair Housing, It's the Law.
Okay.
And we broadcast on the third Thursday of the month on KFCF Fresno Radio 88.1 FM.
Okay. What is the actual mission of the Fair Housing Council?
Well, I would say the mission of the Fair Housing Council is to eradicate housing and or lending discrimination in the Central Valley. And we are actually part of a larger group associated with the National Fair Housing Alliance, which is out of Washington, D.C. We receive no financial support for them, but we do share the support of the same type of mission. And so what we do is we investigate claims from victims of housing and or lending discrimination and some insurance discrimination based on home insurance properties, home insurance products rather. And so in doing that, sometimes we're able to uncover those housing providers that are violating federal law.
Okay. I just recently saw something that was brought to my attention about a local property that the tenants woke up on this past Monday morning, a holiday, with no running water, no hot water, and things of that nature. Are those the types of cases that y'all deal with, or is that passed along to someone else?
Well, it depends on the actual facts of the case. If those are practices by a housing provider that are targeting people because of their race or national origin or because they have children, sometimes we could be involved. If someone is physically disabled and they need that kind of air conditioning or water usage, they're perhaps mobility impaired, then we might be involved because of that. Otherwise, it's probably a landlord-tenant habitability issue.
Okay.
Well, to clarify there, the Fair Housing Council of Central California does not necessarily take on what are sometimes referred to as slumlord cases. There's a caveat there, as Diane talked about, because sometimes you can have a landlord that's doing something that's a violation of state or local laws that have to do with health and safety or welfare of their tenants, but they're not actually, I mean, they would do this to anyone. They're not actually discriminating against folks because of the big seven that are named in the Fair Housing Act, and those are landlords who refuse to rent, sell, or otherwise negotiate a place to live, or refuse to make repairs, or treat people in a poor way because of either race, color, national origin, religion, gender, disability, or family status. And it has to be because of those kinds of things for us to get involved. But as Diane has noted, sometimes you have an act of discrimination going on, as well as these practices that deal with repairs and lack of maintenance and that kind of thing. And insofar as the complaint that you're hearing about a landlord who's letting the not having running water, you know, in California, under California state law, when a landlord lets a place to live, either through lease, rent, what have you, there is, the law says, an implied warranty of habitability when that landlord is renting the property, which means, it's kind of a legal term, and what it means is that the standards for living are up to California state standards, and that they're livable, habitable conditions. Not having access to water, running water or heat, for example, are violations of not only California state law, they would also be violations of local laws in counties and cities as well. And there's a remedy for that, municipal codes.
Yeah, some of the things, and I know we've talked about this on your show, some of the things, some of the subtle signs of discrimination that people face, and see if I'm hitting all of the right points. Refusal to sell or rent or to show available housing. Requiring different terms or conditions for identical units,
Exactly.
such as charging higher rent for one unit versus the other, even though they're identical. Being told that the dwelling isn't quite right for you. Being told that housing isn't available, even though there's a for rent sign out front. And also, and this is a big one, and I know we've talked about this numerous times, the no kids, adults only.
Right.
And we've had several discussions on this one. And then there's the big one, reasonable accommodation. And this goes back to what you were
And
talking about.
modification.
That's
That
going
goes
to do
in,
with disabled
they
tenants.
sort of go in tandem, reasonable accommodation and reasonable modification. And a modification is a structural change to the dwelling.
And if we're talking about things like reasonable accommodations or reasonable modifications of the property, we're talking about disabled tenants and or home seekers. Home seekers are people that are out there either trying to rent a place to live or purchase a home, a mobile home, or any place that would be considered a dwelling under the law, under federal law and under state law. So in order to have these special reasonable accommodations in terms, rules, conditions of tenancy or policies of tenancy, the person who would be asking for those kinds of accommodations or modifications has to be disabled and has to correlate a nexus between that, whatever that request is for reasonable accommodation or modification of the property. And they have to establish that nexus between the actual disability that they have and the request itself, or the need
Something
implied
similar
by
to
the
what
request.
my wife and I encountered, because my wife has seizures.
She's
and
disabled.
She is disabled.
Okay.
She's in a power chair
Oh,
because
okay.
of other physical disabilities.
Right.
But the apartment complex that we live in has a very strict no pets policy. But my wife has a service dog that is trained to recognize her seizures and to go on alert.
Yes.
And the apartment complex made a big point about saying, yes, this is what falls under reasonable accommodation, because that dog is a service animal and is an alert type animal
Right.
because of her disabilities.
Right.
So what she does is she establishes a nexus between the need of having a dog, and I think we might backtrack and talk about service animals versus pets.
Exactly.
So how does the law read in terms of service animals versus pets?
Well, a service animal is some creature that is trained specifically by the disabled person or trained for the needs of the disabled person by some other training organization to help them to perform certain specific tasks related to everyday life.
And those tasks could be also the kind of behavior from the dog that would provide an uplifting for them psychologically, because some people have disabilities that aren't physical. They might have psychological disabilities, they might have mental disabilities. We're in the presence of the dog and some of the things that the dog might do. That would make that dog a service and/or therapy animal. And they're not a pet.
No, they're not a pet.
And there's a big distinction in the law. You could ask for a reasonable accommodation from a landlord that has a no pets policy if you're disabled and have a service or a therapy dog. But it's almost unnecessary because the law plainly says that service animals are not considered as pets, and therefore you can't levy as a landlord or a property management company. You cannot levy special fees, pet deposits, that kind of thing, because they're not really a
Or charge
pet.
extra rent.
Or charge
Sometimes
extra rent. We hear
extra rent
about
is charged.
landlords who want to tack on an extra $20 a month
Yes.
because of the presence of your therapy dog. But most certainly your housing provider is acting in good faith.
Okay, great. And with that, we'll end our first segment, and if y'all will stick around for a second segment.
We will.
I've got some other questions that I've written down that we can go into.
Great.
And with that, we'll be back in a few minutes.
Don't miss BuzzCon, coming to the Tulare International Agri Center this September 13th and 14th. Shop for comics, toys, sports cards, movies, and video games. Plenty of celebrity guests are appearing, including Vernon Wells of Mad Max 2 and Commando fame, as well as Virginia Hay from Farscape and Mad Max. Come dressed as your favorite character and enter the cosplay costume contest. There will also be many gaming tournaments taking place. 2 days of action and adventure await you at the Tulare BuzzCon.
What's new at the Fulton 55? Fulton 55 is Fresno's hottest venue at Fulton and Divisadero.
Look at this house right across the street from Fresno City College. You could own it for $900 a month. Plus, it has an apartment you could rent out for $400 a month. Come to our open house this Saturday at 1 o'clock. Go to MikeBriggsProperties.com for details.
In 1985, Larry Korth set out to help his friends, family, and community find affordable ways to buy a home or a business property. 30 years later, Mid-Valley Financial is the premier mortgage banker in the Central Valley. The professional staff at Mid-Valley will find the best mortgage products for your family. Mid-Valley Financial takes great pride in being the Central Valley's local lender. Visit us at midvalleyfinancial.com.
Before you call one of those discount insurance places, you should know the facts. Fresno's CCIS can get you up to a 26% discount on your car, homeowners, and life insurance needs. Call 320-2247 or go to ccIsinsurance.com.
Considering solar? Whether you're ready to buy now or just exploring your options, the consultants at Solar Negotiators are here to help you. A call to Solar Negotiators is like calling 5 solar companies at once. You see, when local established solar contractors have gaps in their schedule, they call Solar Negotiators to fill them. Right now, get 5 years of panel cleaning and maintenance or $1,000 off your new solar panels. So stop wasting your time searching and call Solar Negotiators, because when contractors compete for your business, you win.
Let the professionals at William L. Mitchell Landscaping make your lawn and gardens beautiful. If you need a new lawn, landscape design, or if you need someone to take over the weekly drudgery of caring for your yard, William L. Mitchell Landscaping can meet your needs. With his ornamental horticulture degree from Fresno State, Bill is qualified to take care of all phases of your landscape construction and design. Call Bill at William L. Mitchell Landscaping at 283-8849. That's Bill Mitchell, 283-8849.
CentralValleyTalk.com.
And we're back on the Michelle Nastasis LGBT Awareness Show. With me today are MJ Borelli and Diane Edwards from the Fair Housing Council of Central California. And for our second segment, I'm going to ask you some rather generic questions that our viewers out there may or may not know that some of the things that your organization does and is kind of responsible for in housing and housing discrimination cases. What agencies do you directly work with on discrimination cases?
Well, actually, we're pretty much empowered financially through the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development, through their Fair Housing Initiatives program. That sounds like a lot of acronyms and stuff, but we basically contract with the federal government to investigate claims of housing and lending discrimination. And we also work with some cities and counties in the central San Joaquin Valley to do maybe some more specific kinds of education and outreach to the general public or to the housing provider community, which could include real estate folks or property management firms or landlords, etc., housing authorities even, to make them aware of what their rights, if you're part of the general public and a tenant or home seeker, or your obligations as a landlord or housing provider under the Fair Housing Act. So we also work and refer folks that may or may not have other issues outside of housing discrimination, and so we would refer people to local legal aid groups or city code enforcements or county code enforcements, etc.
I noticed you said that you get a lot of your funding sources from HUD. Do you work directly with HUD on discrimination cases, or is it more of a we do the initial investigation and then refer it to them, or vice versa? They do the investigation and then refer it to you, and then you take the ball and run.
Well, generally what we do is we have the initial complaint. We look at the complaint to determine whether or not it's jurisdictional. Is it a fair housing claim? Is it a claim of housing discrimination and not just a leaky toilet in the bathroom, because we're not lawyers, we're investigators. And when we might find evidence that would support the claim of housing discrimination, then we have the option of filing that case with HUD. HUD has regulatory authority over the Fair Housing Act, which is federal law, just like the EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, has regulatory authority over the Clean Air or the Clean Water Act. So we can send some cases to them. They might even undertake another investigation to find some resolving to the matter for the victim of the housing discrimination.
Okay. Next dumb question that I know a lot of people are going to ask. Does your agency charge a fee to the client who may or may not have a case? Or is it strictly through grants and aid from the federal government, or grants and aid through private industry and private sources?
Well, we absolutely charge no fees at the Fair Housing Council.
Okay. What about your funding sources? Are they primarily through HUD or through private grants and aid and things of that nature?
Well, most of our funding is under the auspices of the Fair Housing Initiatives program, which is a program for private fair housing councils like the Fair Housing Council in Central California. And we're qualified by HUD. We're considered a qualified fair housing organization by HUD, and that's what we do, is we investigate on basically their behalf for the victims of housing discriminations. People can also make a direct claim with HUD. In California, that's going to be in San Francisco with the Office of Fair Housing and Equal Opportunity, and that's the office that we contract with. But insofar as private donations and that kind of thing, sometimes we wind up suing landlords and or other instigators of discrimination. That can include banks or companies or what have you. We don't have a lot of private enterprise knocking down our door writing us a check, for that matter, because we sue landlords, basically.
Okay. and since I've been on your radio show, I know a little bit about the format, and I know the name of the show is called Fair Housing, It's the Law. Tell us a little bit more about what you go into in depth in terms of what topical are you dealing specifically with housing law, or are you dealing with, like in my case, LGBT awareness, or do you try to cover the whole gamut of topics within the fair housing arena?
Well, I think we cover a lot of topics, some that, all of which touch on fair housing laws, federal or state fair housing laws. It's just sometimes specific parts of the law are fairly far-reaching and involve perhaps cities, counties, states. So we talk about some of those issues too, and it could be, you know, all types of housing justice, like for instance, the idea in a segregated neighborhood that's where all of the
Affordable
rendering
housing,
plants
or-
and, you know, toxic chemical producers, that's where they're going to be allowed to have their business in a place that maybe is primarily minority inhabited. And that city will allow that and will zone it for that. Or cities may restrict group homes or something because of zoning ordinances, or even, you know, restrict multifamily housing that with maybe either the intent or else the consequence of having a segregated neighborhood because of that. So and all of the topics that you were talking about, those all touch on fair housing issues, actually. Even the LGBT awareness, you know, there is the new HUD policy of a couple of years ago that this unfortunately only really right now deals with properties that receive federal funds in their operation of prohibiting discrimination because of someone's sexual identity. And that's something that's only a couple of years old.
Yeah,
And
I
they're
think it's
still
only
sort
a
of
couple,
building.
2-3 years old
Well,
at
it's
the
exactly.
most.
It's a 2010 ruling. However, it still remains a violation of California state law.
Yes.
State of California has a whole set of fair housing laws that pretty much mirror the Fair Housing Act. We have a few extra things because California cares about its residents and has some very strict fair housing laws. For example, in California, it's a violation of those fair housing laws, those government codes, to discriminate on the basis in lending, housing transactions, also employment, because of sexual orientation. So it goes across the board and encompasses not only sexual identity but sexual orientation. Whereas the HUD rule is about gender and sexual identity. It gets a little
Right.
complicated. But there's a recourse if you feel, for example, if you're a member of the LGBT community and you feel like you're being discriminated against in a housing transaction or a lending transaction, you can still contact the Fair Housing Council of Central California. We'll investigate, and then we're going to grieve that claim either in state court or with the State Department of Fair Employment and Housing, which is an agency that has regulatory authority over those government codes in California.
And it's also interesting that we were talking about that the California law mirrors federal law about fair housing, but it also predates that federal law by a number of years.
That's true.
California was really a forerunner in fair housing legislation.
Well, for example, the protections against discrimination on the basis of disability and familial status, which is about families with children, people who have minor children in the household. Those were amendments that were added to the original Fair Housing Act in 1988. The original act went into effect in 1968, 20 years prior. Already in California, you had some counties and parts of California who already had local ordinances against landlords who discriminated against families with children, for example. And then, we have the Ralph Civil Rights Act as well as the Fair Employment and Housing Act. We have the Rough Civil Rights Act, the Unruh Act, and way before all of that was the Rumford Act, which was all about housing discrimination in California.
Okay, in our final minute, why don't you tell us a little bit about where y'all are located and how to contact you?
You can contact us by calling 559-244-2950, or if you're out of the 559 area code, 1-800
498?
498-FAIR, F-A-I-R. I only say this a million times, Dan already forgot it. And we're located here in
So many
Fresno.
numbers.
You need to call us ahead of time. We'd be interested in hearing about your claim and determining where we would go from there to get some.
And we have a website, too.
And we have a website.
And a Facebook page.
All right, tell us the website address
The
is.
website address is fhc-cc.org.
Or you can Google Fair Housing Council of Central California in Fresno, California.
All right, thank you.
Thank
you for
you.
being here today.
Thanks for
And
inviting us.
I'm glad that I finally got y'all on my show to.
Now you have to come back on
now,
our show.
now I
Let's
get
get
now
back on our
yeah
show.
now I got to come back on your
That's
show
absolutely
again.
right.
Okay, thank you, MJ. Thank you, Diane, for being here today on the
pleasure.
Michelle Nastasis show, and we'll be right back after this.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you.
Don't miss BuzzCon, coming to the Tulare International Agri Center this September 13th and 14th. Shop for comics, toys, sports cards, movies, and video games. Plenty of celebrity guests are appearing, including Vernon Wells of Mad Max 2 and Commando fame, as well as Virginia Hay from Farscape and Mad Max. Come dressed as your favorite character and enter the cosplay costume contest. There will also be many gaming tournaments taking place. 2 days of action and adventure await you at the Tulare BuzzCon.
What's new at the Fulton 55? Fulton 55 is Fresno's hottest venue at Fulton and Divisadero.
Look at this house right across the street from Fresno City College. You could own it for $900 a month. Plus, it has an apartment you could rent out for $400 a month. Come to our open house this Saturday at 1 o'clock. Go to MikeBriggsProperties.com for details.
In 1985, Larry Korth set out to help his friends, family, and community find affordable ways to buy a home or a business property. 30 years later, Mid-Valley Financial is the premier mortgage banker in the Central Valley. The professional staff at Mid-Valley will find the best mortgage products for your family. Mid-Valley Financial takes great pride in being the Central Valley's local lender. Visit us at midvalleyfinancial.com.
Before you call one of those discount insurance places, you should know the facts. Fresno's CCIS can get you up to a 26% discount on your car, homeowners, and life insurance needs. Call 320-2247 or go to ccisinsurance.com.
Considering solar? Whether you're ready to buy now or just exploring your options, the consultants at Solar Negotiators are here to help you. A call to Solar Negotiators is like calling 5 solar companies at once. You see, when local established solar contractors have gaps in their schedule, they call Solar Negotiators to fill them. Right now, get 5 years of panel cleaning and maintenance or $1,000 off your new solar panels. So stop wasting your time searching and call Solar Negotiators, because when contractors compete for your business, you win.
Let the professionals at William L. Mitchell Landscaping make your lawn and gardens beautiful. If you need a new lawn, landscape design, or if you need someone to take over the weekly drudgery of caring for your yard, William L. Mitchell Landscaping can meet your needs. With his ornamental horticulture degree from Fresno State, Bill is qualified to take care of all phases of your landscape construction and design. Call Bill at William L. Mitchell Landscaping at 283-8849. That's Bill Mitchell, 283-8849.
CentralValleyTalk.com.
And welcome back to the Michelle Nastasis LGBT Awareness Show. For my next topic, this one's kind of near and dear to my heart because, as I've said many times on this show before, I am transgender, and This next story was sent to me by a friend of mine in South Carolina about a teenager being told by the Department of Motor Vehicles in South Carolina that in order for them to have their driver's license picture taken, they had to, quote unquote, dress like a boy. And I'm going to read what was sent to me. A gender nonconforming teen who was applying for their driver's license was told by DMV to look more like a boy. Chase Culpepper, who wears makeup and women's clothing, was applying for her license at the DMV in Anderson, South Carolina. For those of you that are not familiar with where Anderson is in the upstate, right near the Smoky Mountains, and it's right next door to Clemson University in the upstate of South Carolina. The reason why the DMV told this young lady to dress more like a boy, because DMV rules, quote unquote, prohibit license photos that have a disguise nature to them. The DMV worker refused to take the photograph while Culpepper was wearing women's clothing and makeup. Much to Chase's credit, she said, "This is who I am, and I wear my clothing and my makeup to reflect that." The DMV does not have any right or reason to force me to simply remove my makeup because of my appearance not meeting their so-called requirements. What she has done over in the last few days, with the help of a lot of LGBT advocates, is that she has filed suit against the state and against the DMV. The other part of her statement was this: "I just want the freedom to be who I am without the DMV telling me that I'm somehow not good enough." Way to go, girl. That's exactly what you needed to say. "I also want to make sure that other gender nonconforming kids and adults don't have to go through this." Now, I'm going to stop right there for a second. Having done this with the state of California, the state of California is very, very easy to work with in terms of changing your name, changing your gender marker, changing your driver's license or ID, so long as you have that one piece of paper that's signed by a judge that says that your legal name is, in my case, Michelle Nastasis. All you have to do is present that to the DMV and one other small document from your psychologist or your primary care physician that states that you are indeed a transitional female. And that document is good for 5 years. So once you have that, you then have 5 years in which to complete your transition or to renew that transitional statement. Teresa Culpepper, Chase's mother, said her daughter passed the driving test and was excited the fact that she could get her driver's license. Instead, she was singled out and discriminated against because she didn't meet somebody's expectation as to what a quote-unquote boy should look like. And she goes on to further state that I want my daughter to be able to be herself without discrimination or harassment. I love her that way. The government should not be telling me that she is not okay the way she is. Amen to that. The Transgender Legal Defense and Education Fund is representing the family in the lawsuit, and they have stated the same basic facts. Chase's freedom to express her gender should not be restricted by the DMV staff of not knowing what to look for, what to expect, and to say, and who gives them the right under any law or any sense of dignity to say that they can't dress the way that they want. They cannot wear makeup. They cannot dress in women's clothing, or the reverse is true. A female transitioning to male, dressing in male clothing and having their picture taken at the DMV. My feeling is this: she is entitled to be who she is and to express without interference from the government, period. And my personal statement is this: forcing Chase to remove her makeup prior to their driver's license photo is a major restriction of free speech and violation of federal and state constitutional protections on this matter. And I didn't have a problem with it with the state of California, but having lived in South Carolina for 22 years, I can understand a little bit about how antiquated some of the rules and regulations with the South Carolina DMV are. Now, with that said, South Carolina is going to have their hands full trying to protect themselves in this discrimination case, because the Transgender Legal Defense Fund, the ACLU, and several other organizations have all joined forces to start to force the state of South Carolina into the 21st century. Now, granted, South Carolina is an old South mentality state. I get that. But however, the people of the state of South Carolina have to realize that the transgender community, the LGBT community, we are all human. That's all we're asking for, is to be treated as humans and to be taken to that next step. Just let us be who we are, without interference, without judgment, without you telling us that we're not good enough to have a driver's license, or we're not good enough to live in your state. I'm sorry, people. Y'all got it wrong this time. And with that, we'll be back right after this.
Don't miss BuzzCon, coming to the Tulare International Agri Center this September 13th and 14th. Shop for comics, toys, sports cards, movies, and video games. Plenty of celebrity guests are appearing, including Vernon Wells of Mad Max 2 and Commando fame, as well as Virginia Hay from Farscape and Mad Max. Come dressed as your favorite character and enter the cosplay costume contest. There will also be many gaming tournaments taking place. 2 days of action and adventure await you at the Tulare BuzzCon.
What's new at the Fulton 55? Fulton 55 is Fresno's hottest venue at Fulton and Divisadero.
Look at this house right across the street from Fresno City College. You could own it for $900 a month. Plus, it has an apartment you could rent out for $400 a month. Come to our open house this Saturday at 1 o'clock. Go to MikeBriggsProperties.com for details.
In 1985, Larry Korth set out to help his friends, family, and community find affordable ways to buy a home or a business property. 30 years later, Mid-Valley Financial is the premier mortgage banker in the Central Valley. The professional staff at Mid-Valley will find the best mortgage products for your family. Mid-Valley Financial takes great pride in being the Central Valley's local lender. Visit us at midvalleyfinancial.com.
Before you call one of those discount insurance places, you should know the facts. Fresno's CCIS can get you up to a 26% discount on your car, homeowners, and life insurance needs. Call 320-2247 or go to ccIsinsurance.com.
Considering solar? Whether you're ready to buy now or just exploring your options, the consultants at Solar Negotiators are here to help you. A call to Solar Negotiators is like calling 5 solar companies at once. You see, when local established solar contractors have gaps in their schedule, they call solar negotiators to fill them. Right now, get 5 years of panel cleaning and maintenance or $1,000 off your new solar panels. So stop wasting your time searching and call solar negotiators, because when contractors compete for your business, you win.
Let the professionals at William L. Mitchell Landscaping make your lawn and gardens beautiful. If you need a new lawn, landscape design, or if you need someone to take over the weekly drudgery of caring for your yard, William L. Mitchell Landscaping can meet your needs. With his ornamental horticulture degree from Fresno State, Bill is qualified to take care of all phases of your landscape construction and design. Call Bill at William L. Mitchell Landscaping at 283-8849. That's Bill Mitchell, 283-8849.
CentralValleyTalk.com.
And welcome back to the last segment of the Michelle Nastasis LGBT Awareness Show. Before we get into our final topic of the day, there's a couple of housekeeping items that I want to go over today. The first is a follow-up on the story that we did in this segment last week about Nolan Gregory. I want to thank all of my viewers for their gracious and heartfelt donations to the Pay It Forward fund that was set up for Nolan. In the week since we made the appeal to donate to the family and help them with their expenses, we have raised, because of your generosity and your compassion, we have raised over an additional $30,000. And I thank you, my wife thanks you, and the family thanks all of you for your gracious donations. And keep up the good work, people. And I can't thank you enough for that. Now, on a sad note, I have to note the passing earlier today of one of the staunchest LGBT advocates in the U.S., and that is the great comedian Joan Rivers. She was 81 years old, and for those of you that have been following the story, she went in for a minor procedure on her throat outside of the hospital at a private practitioner, and she suffered full cardiac and respiratory arrest, was taken to the hospital, and was on life support for the better part of a week or so. And at about 1:17 this afternoon Eastern time, Joan Rivers passed away. And my wife Gianna and I would like to pass along our deepest sympathies to the entire Rivers family, her daughter, her son, and all of the people that surrounded this great comedian and this great staunch supporter of the LGBT community. Rest in peace, Joan. You have earned your place where we all go at the end. Thank you for everything that you have done. Now, on to the next segment. Guess what, people? The state of California has passed a law that they become the first state to ban the use of the so-called gay panic defense. In other words, you can no longer wiggle out of a murder charge by saying you were frightened by a scary lesbian or a gay man or a trans man or a trans woman. Can't do it anymore. Current California law allows a murder charge to be reduced to manslaughter if the killing happened in the heat of passion, the so-called panic defense. Defendants charged with murdering members of the LGBT community have been able to claim that in the moment of passion, they discovered that the victim was an LGBT member. This is no longer going to happen. Thank you, thank you, thank you. The bill that passed the Assembly this week will bar defendants from using their victim's gender or sexual orientation or gender identity to support a panic defense. An identical bill passed in May. Democratic Assemblywoman Susan Bonilla sponsored the bill, and this bill passed the Assembly on a 50-10 vote. Ms. Bonilla told reporters after the fact that such defense legitimized violence against the LGBT community. No longer is the case. The American Bar Association, as we have stated last week, has advocated for some time curtailing the use of the gay panic defense. California is the first state to ban the heat of passion defense because the victim was a member of the LGBT community. The bill is now sitting on Governor Brown's desk for his approval. Here's a couple of thoughts that I have on it. Number one, it's about time. Okay? Number two, it affords us in the LGBT community an additional level of protection that we didn't have before. This bill dovetails beautifully with the American Bar Association's recent statement that they are now going to champion LGBT rights, LGBT privileges, and above all, they are going to work with the federal government and state governments on eliminating items such as this, the gay panic defense. It's been a long, hard fight to get to this point. We've got this much in the bank. Let's get the next step in the bank. Let's get, instead of 19 states and the District of Columbia on board with gay marriage and things of that nature and protections for the LGBT community. I'm asking the members of the LGBT community across the country and across the world, especially here in the U.S., start writing your congressmen, start writing your senators, start writing your local officials. Put the pressure on them to start making LGBT awareness, LGBT protections, part and parcel of your campaign, part and parcel of your city laws. Let's get equal treatment for all of us, not just the gay and lesbian and bi community, the T community. Let's get this done. Let's push hard. We've come a long way in a short period of time. Let's take the next step. Push hard for the Supreme Court to take up these cases that are in the 4th, the 6th, the 7th districts that are all over the place in terms of defining what gay marriage is and what gay rights are and what LGBT rights are and LGBT awareness issues that are before the courts. Let's get this done. I would dearly love to see over the next year to take those 19 states plus the District of Columbia, and let's double that. Let's make it 38 states, 39 states, 40 states. Eventually, I can see sometime in the next 5 years that it's legal in all 50 states, gay marriage. My wife and I are blessed the fact that we live in a state that was progressive enough to allow gay marriage. I'm trans. My wife is bisexual. We fall under that protected class category. And we didn't have a bit of problems when we went down to the city clerk's office to fill out the paperwork for our marriage. Not one problem. In fact, we were welcomed with open arms by the staff, and I got to give the staff at the clerk's office major props for what they did. They didn't have a bit of problem with us. Yes, we got a lot of looks from a lot of people because, hey, let's face it, we were in both in very, very fancy gowns, both had high heels on, both were made up like we were going to get married, that's what we were doing. We got a lot of comments from the people that were there to do the same thing. Had a lot of comments about our orientation. Had one or two people stop us and say, beautiful makeup, beautiful gowns, and so on and so forth. But then again, we had on the other side of the fence one or two people that made rather interesting comments. And I ran across something that fits this perfectly yesterday. And I think this is a perfect comeback to somebody that says something, especially to the T community, the male to female community in this case. If somebody asks you, how come you're a guy wearing a dress? And my comeback to them now is, which part of this is you? Are you an idiot or are you just a moron? It's straightforward, and it's time that the LGBT community itself, and I'm not just talking here in Fresno, I'm talking about in all 50 states, the District of Columbia. Let's take that next step. Let's push hard. Let's take what the American Bar Association has said, that they support equal rights for the LGBT community. Let's make it happen. And yes, I know I'm on my soapbox a little bit today, but the gay panic defense is something that has been needed in this state and all 50 states to protect the LGBT community for some time. Case in point, the disturbing news coming out of the city of Baltimore over the last few months, where 4 trans women have been murdered because the person that did it was, quote unquote, afraid of them being a trans woman. Excuse me, we're human too. So let's take that and let's make this happen. Let's get rid of that so-called gay panic defense in all 50 states. And again, I'm going to stop right there as far as my soapbox is concerned. I want to, again, express my deep condolences to the Rivers family and her daughter Melissa and the rest of their family. And again, I want to thank all of the donors that have stepped forward over the last week to help out Nolan Gregory and his family. And I have received numerous emails from the family and from people that are involved with the family thanking us for everything that we have done. We didn't do anything, folks. It's all been my viewers. It's all been the people that really cared about this little boy. They have taken it to the next level. And in 1 week to raise the kind of money that we have just goes and speaks volumes about the generosity and the heart of the people that watch this show. They really, really care. And for that, I thank you. I thank you again. And with that, we'll close today's show. Next week, just to let you know, we'll have another special guest from the Pink Panthers movement. And we'll also be talking about a topic that is somewhat controversial and somewhat near and dear to my heart. And we'll be talking about suicide and how to prevent it within the LGBT community. And with that, y'all have a good weekend, and we'll see you next Thursday at 3 o'clock here on the Michelle Nastasis LGBT Awareness Show. Y'all have a good weekend.
Don't miss BuzzCon, coming to the Tulare International Agri Center this September 13th and 14th. Shop for comics, toys, sports cards, movies, and video games. Plenty of celebrity guests are appearing, including Vernon Wells of Mad Max 2 and Commando fame, as well as Virginia Hay from Farscape and Mad Max. Come dressed as your favorite character and enter the cosplay costume contest. There will also be many gaming tournaments taking place. 2 days of action and adventure await you at the Tulare BuzzCon.
What's new at the Fulton 55? Fulton 55 is Fresno's hottest venue at Fulton and Divisadero.
Look at this house right across the street from Fresno City College. You could own it for $900 a month. Plus, it has an apartment you could rent out for $400 a month. Come to our open house this Saturday at 1 o'clock. Go to MikeBriggsProperties.com for details.
In 1985, Larry Korth set out to help his friends, family, and community find affordable ways to buy a home or a business property. 30 years later, Mid-Valley Financial is the premier mortgage banker in the Central Valley. The professional staff at Mid-Valley will find the best mortgage products for your family. Mid-Valley Financial takes great pride in being the Central Valley's local lender. Visit us at midvalleyfinancial.com.
Before you call one of those discount insurance places, you should know the facts. Fresno's CCIS can get you up to a 26% discount on your car, homeowners, and life insurance needs. Call 320-2247 or go to ccisinsurance.com.
Considering solar? Whether you're ready to buy now or just exploring your options, the consultants at Solar Negotiators are here to help you. A call to Solar Negotiators is like calling 5 solar companies at once. You see, when local established solar contractors have gaps in their schedule, they call Solar Negotiators to fill them. Right now, get 5 years of panel cleaning and maintenance or $1,000 off your new solar panels. So stop wasting your time searching and call Solar Negotiators, because when contractors compete for your business, you win.
Let the professionals at William L. Mitchell Landscaping make your lawn and gardens beautiful. If you need a new lawn, landscape design, or if you need someone to take over the weekly drudgery of caring for your yard, William L. Mitchell Landscaping can meet your needs. With his ornamental horticulture degree from Fresno State, Bill is qualified to take care of all phases of your landscape construction and design. Call Bill at William L. Mitchell Landscaping at 283-8849. That's Bill Mitchell, 283-8849.
CentralValleyTalk.com